Hi, Gerald.
Right there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family, yourself and your family, how you got here in Macomb Township?
Okay, my family, you mean like my grandparents?
Your family,
Yeah,
your mom and dad.
they came over in the middle 1800s. Matter of fact, 1857. They landed in New York for a while, and then they came to Michigan up on, near Port Huron. But then my great-grandfather's wife passed away, and then he moved on to Macomb on 21 Mile Road. And that's where my grandfather and my dad, his brothers, and me and my brothers were all born on 21 Mile Road. Just half a mile from between Romeo Plank and Heinrich. It was our homestead.
And what was the area like when you first, can you recall back then?
When I was a little guy, it was nice. You know, there wasn't a lot. We had like a 100-acre farm, and just average country living.
And what kinds of farming did you do?
It was my dad did dairy farming. He was a dairy farmer.
And so you didn't have to do clearing, or did you have to do clearing?
No. Actually, I was born in 1936.
Okay.
And but then my father passed away when I was 8. Turned 8, and we were on the farm yet a little bit. My mother did it on her own for a while, and my grandfather. And then we moved to Card Road in 23, where the school is there. We lived there in a little garage house for a while, and then after a few years, my mother retired, and then we moved on Romeo Plank, and that's right in front of the schools there, between 21 and 22 there.
And you said you had brothers, sisters, siblings?
No sisters, 2 brothers.
Okay.
They're both passed away.
Were they into the farming too?
My youngest brother helped us. See, after my dad died and we got old enough, then we went and worked for local farmers. I worked, my oldest brother was an electrician.
I see. And what was it like out here when you were growing up? I mean, can you describe the area? I mean, was it all farms or?
All farms, very few tractors at that. They were just starting with tractors. My dad never had, he farmed all with horses. But the roads were all gravel. It was Shoemaker, 21 Mile Road was Shoemaker, that road. And there's a lot of things that took place at that time, you know, like if someone passed away, the church bells at Emmanuel would ring at noon. They would ring, and then they would chime out the age of the person. And by that time, everybody pretty well knew, you know, who it was. Oh, Mrs. So-and-so down the road, or has been sick, and sure enough, that's why. Things like that. You know? When you were in the field, it was quiet. I can remember when I was a kid, there was no noise around.
Was the church a big part of life, social and family life when you were growing up?
I would say yes, yeah. And things that you went to was at church most of the time.
It'd be like social events. And what kinds of social events or activities would you have at the church?
Well, my mother was in with the Ladies' Aid, my dad with the men's club. And we were just kids, us kids just played around the church while the meetings were on. Listen to the little screech owls. It was full of them, you know, at that time.
And what about fire and police protection?
Then no fire. If there was a fire, they had to either come from Selbyfield or Mount Clemens. And the phone, the nearest phone, was a pastor down on 21 Romeo Plank. He had the phone. You had to go there first.
The phone?
The phone.
Wow.
For 21 Mile Road.
Okay.
Yeah, that was anything that happened. You went up there and they made the call for you. Like for somebody was going to be born, or if you were sick or something. That's where you would go.
And when you worked on the dairy farm, what types of chores did you have to do? And can you describe like a typical day when you were growing up there on the farm?
Typical day on the farm was, well, this is when I was older. I mean, when I was a child, I would, with my dad, maybe he'd let me take the horses to the water trough to get a drink and stuff. But after a while, when I worked on the farm when I was young, in my teens, then we got up, started milk at 6, and then we'd do our plowing and that. We did a lot of custom farming for other people. We were hired out to plow and combine and bale hay and stuff like that.
I see.
And you'd end up at night milking the cows again, going home, and getting ready to go out.
So, and then as far as your education, you and your siblings, where'd you go to school?
We went to Emmanuel Lutheran. Okay. My grandson just graduated, and he was the 5th generation now that went through the Emmanuel school. Yeah.
And was that a one room school?
Yep. 1-room school, and when we went there, I think there's probably around, I don't know, 60, maybe 68 kids or so. That one teacher.
And then would that be K-8 or would that be right through high school or?
No, K-8, from kindergarten to 8th grade. And then we went into Mount Clemens High. Okay. The township here, somehow they picked up the bill, for going to school there. So like the public.
And how did you get there? I mean, how did you?
Well, I got there, my wife now, her folks bought a car because there was no way to get to school. And she was our chauffeur.
Okay.
Quarter a day.
Is that what you got charged, a quarter a day?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, gas was a lot cheaper then too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I was working for that farmer, we rented a barn up here on 23, and we were taking straw from Romeo Plank there, up here, back and forth, and in Wallenberg they had a gas war. And it started out, I think it was 23 cents a gallon at Rawbeck's, and then Stady, it got down to, I think, 16 cents a gallon, and they both went back to the regular price.
And what was the regular price? You remember?
About 23
About
cents.
23 cents.
Yeah.
You mentioned Waldenburg. Was that a hub for the area at the time? I mean, was that a focal point for activities here?
Wallenberg actually was the church first. That's Wallenberg, and then it was like North Wallenberg would be Wallenberg, the little town.
Okay.
And then South Wallenberg was down on the corner of Hall Road, and there was a grocery store and a bar there. You went and bought your ice for the ice box down there, stuff like that.
Okay, okay. And do you have any particular item or thing that comes to mind in regards to Macomb Township as you were growing up? I mean,
Macomb Township, yeah. Well, like I said, this property that we're at here was my in-laws, my father-in-law's farm. And I can remember when the fire hall was a big deal. Russ Koss was a fireman, and my oldest brother was in on it. I wasn't, but.
Would that be back in the?
That was been in the 50s.
Yeah, when they first started the fire department here.
And the first fire was just down the road here in a farmhouse.
Well, talking about those emergencies, you said the pastor had the only phone on 21 Mile Road.
Yep, he was.
But what if, what about like for medical care? Let's say you did have a fire. Barns just burn or houses burn?
Yes, a lot of times it was a Luftman farm on 21. Well, that's where the sawmill was too there. But their barn burned, and the cattle and everything burned up. That was it. I can remember as kids standing in our home looking out the top windows watching the thing burn. Yeah. Another thing, like, first neighbors were neighbors then. A lot of people don't even know your neighbor now. But back then, like, when we still lived in the farm, we got sick one spring, and the roads were so muddy. Well, the old doctor had a Jeep, Army Jeep. He was an old Army doctor, Dr. Buckley. And he'd come down that road, and when he'd get stuck, the farmer across the road come out with a tractor, hook on. Either that, pull them out, pull them down to our place. He'd take care of us, and he'd pull them back out to 21 Mile Road.
Yeah, talking about roads, what did you do? I mean, if the roads were dirt out here, and let's say you had like a bad winter, rainstorm, and you had puddles, how did you guys grade those roads?
No, the county, yeah, when I was a child.
Okay.
I mean, we walked to school, they'd keep them open a little bit.
And how far of a walk was it?
To school?
Yes.
It was a half a mile.
Half a mile each way.
Yep.
Okay.
And then after the farm was sold, after my grandfather passed away, we moved over here in 23, and then it was like almost 4 miles. We rode our bikes,
Okay.
met along with cousins. In those days, a lot of people right in the area were relation, uncles, aunts, stuff like that.
What kinds of things did you guys do did you do when you were young like that for fun?
For fun?
Or not fun?
No, when we were young, probably just, chores was done, you went in the house, you just played, and that was it,
Toys, games?
Toys would be like, we had little tractors and stuff. We'd play on them there. The other day, our television went out, and we were sitting there, and I asked my wife, what did we do before they had the television,
Mm-hmm.
You just read books or put puzzles together or something like that.
Listen to the radio a lot?
Well, later on, but not when my folks, all they had was an old radio with a box with a speaker on the top, and that was crack a lot. He'd listen to, my dad would come in and listen to Gabriel Heater and somebody like that.
Okay.
And then Amos and Andy, and then the thing would be shut off, and that was it. You just visit.
And in terms of when you had dinner with the family, was that a different than nowadays? Did you sit down, everybody sit down and have dinner, breakfast, and so forth?
Yep. Dinner, there was, breakfast was a certain time. Dinner was noon. Supper was most of around 5 o'clock. Even when I worked for that farmer, that's about the way it went.
Okay.
I mean, they knew we were going to be there at that time.
And what was Mama's role in all of this?
My mother was a hard-working lady. And after my dad passed away, she just went to work. And she made bread, like when we was on the farm. Bread was maybe made on Saturdays and Wednesdays. Pies were made on Saturdays. Every day was something. She had her laundry to do. She had her baking to do, ironing to do, Mm-hmm. And back in those days, everything was, you had to sprinkle it all and iron. Everything got ironed, even the sheets. They didn't have enough work to do. They made some for themselves.
And did Mom, Dad, did you go shopping like for groceries any particular place?
My mother would go into Mount Clemens probably about every other week. And she'd take eggs in and then come back with groceries.
That'd be like a bartering pretty much? Like,
Yeah, it'd be like things that she would buy would be like ring bologna and stuff. That was like a treat. But we had all our own chickens and all that on the farm,
Okay. Now you said your last name is Kraatz. Has that name changed over the years? Was it something different?
No, we say Kraatz.
Kraatz.
My uncle and them from the greenhouse used Kraatz more. I don't know, just for the business or something like that. Kraatz was the way it was still mentioned.
And originally, where did great-grandparents come from?
Came from Germany, and they came from Persia or in that area there of Germany.
Okay, would they be Prussia?
Yes.
Gerald, can you tell us a little bit more about Waldenberg Bar and Goldie's?
Well, see, Goldie's was, what's Goldie's now was in Eschenberg, and that was, it was a general store. When I was little, it still had on the north wall, the ladders that went along. He sold everything, boots, overall. And then in the back there, I think he had like a barber chair, and I think he had a little bar he ran in there. And then it was sold to Kling's Tavern, and then it went to Goldie's, which is now. But that Goldie's was not till the 50s, maybe, sometime.
Oh.
And then the Wallenberg Bar, that was, I don't really know who, but it was the building that's still there. The one side you went in was a general store, and the other side was the bar. And the store was just food and stuff. I mean, I can still remember the big thing of cheese with the glass thing over it. And upstairs was used, well, like Texaco and different gas. There was St. Clair there, and they would come and put a show on for all the local farmers that could go there. And they'd have movies they would show, and then they would have drawing they would give oil away and stuff like that. And a lunch they would have, and pop. That was, if there was something, it was that, a lot of times up there in the Dops building.
Was that put on by the oil company itself,
Yeah,
Sinclair?
yeah, they
that
would.
was the one with the dinosaur, wasn't it? I believe.
Yeah,
thought,
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they would put it on. And about maybe once a year in the fall they would.
Okay.
Kitty corner across, that's Steers Hardware. Everyone knows that.
And tell us a little bit more about Steers Hardware.
Steers Hardware was there for a long, long time. I mean, before I was around, that was there. It was very good hardware at one time. But they sold farm equipment, all your different farm equipment, horse-drawn. And then after a while, they did sell tractors too. Massey Harris's and stuff like that.
And then you mentioned Romeo Plank Road. Was that a main thoroughway then?
Yes, it came like they used to say, and this is just from listening to my folks and stuff, that I think from East Detroit or so, that was like a halfway way. And I guess people did stay over there. The upstairs was rooms and all. And then they would go on to Romeo was kind of the end of the thing, I guess. Okay. I don't know that much about before my time, but when my folks talked, I was a good listener. I was always trying to find out things going on.
You mentioned something about a sawmill at 21 Mile Road.
That was Luffman's, yeah. And
what was the name of that, please?
Luffman. Arndt's run it, but Luffman was the name of the sawmill. And that was quite a operation. The farmers take their logs there, and then through the winter and that, they would saw constantly. When we would butcher, we'd go there and get our sawdust for the smokehouse, you know. And like everybody took wood there to have it done. See, my dad always told us that our grandfather, he marked the trees that they could cut for wood. That's all they had for heat was. But he always kept enough good trees that if a barn burned, he could cut them and get them sawed, and he could have enough to build a barn.
And that was a real concern at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was quite an operation. The sawmill was there. Yeah.
And again, going back to that 22 Mile Road area, you mentioned movies. Were there social events and activities that were held there too?
Well, most of the time, dances. There was dances held there. And I think maybe before my time, but I think the politicians kind of, Democrats and Republicans, my stepdad always told me they had election time, they would put a post in, and then the Republicans could just use their post for their signs, but he said that was always a scrabble. Be tearing each other's off.
And where would they put those posts at?
I think he explained it to me. It was like across the way there, like an open lot there or something.
Okay. And they would tack up their own.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Nothing's changed in it.
No. No.
What about, you mentioned something about Victorian homes. Were there any Victorian homes, or were they all farm homes out here? I mean, anything real extravagant that you would consider extravagant out
No,
here?
I'd say they were all farm.
All farms.
The T-type farm is.
And
I-
all, go ahead.
Me and my wife, we still own our house that we had, and that's a farmhouse.
So that house has been how long in your family?
Well, we,
I mean, as far as you've been being here.
we moved there in '50
Okay.
after my mother married. But that house that we're working on now is built the same as a barn. They're wooden pegs and everything. It's
Oh my God.
yeah. So it was maybe around 1870 something.
And then I assume that the foundation, the base,
All stone,
all stone, probably from the fields, right?
more than likely.
Okay.
See, I think they used to make in Walmart there. I think there was a place they made bricks too. Because there's a few brick homes in the area if you ever look. Romeo Plank when you're going down, there's one. Our old homestead was brick. Yeah, but I think they were made right local there. The bricks were.
And it fired right there, and
Yeah, I think right in Walmart there. I think. Yeah.
so Waldorf played a big role in
Oh
it.
yes, it did.
And didn't you say there was? I thought earlier you said there was 2 Waldenbergs.
Well,
So to speak.
actually, Bobstein's Corners, they always used to say it was South Wallenberg, and that was North Wallenberg. But the church actually was where the name first came from.
Ah.
See, a lot of them settlers, they came from a town called Wallenberg in Germany, and that's how the name got taken over here.
Okay, so that's where that dates back to. And I take it that over the years, even to today, your church and still is a big part of your social life here in
Oh,
Macomb
yeah.
Township?
Yeah, you know, the school, there's always stuff going on, true.
Is there any other thing that you'd like to tell us about your experiences of living here in Macomb Township? What you've seen, what you've experienced over the years?
Well, I've seen a lot of changes. Romeo Plank was just a narrow road. Now look what we got there. And there used to be, I don't know anybody, but where Wiegand's nursery is now, right across the road is where the blacksmith shop used to be. Because I can remember my dad taking like a drag there to get it fixed, you know. He didn't, well, and the horses to get them shoed. But that was there, you know, I don't know when they tore that down, but that's where the old blacksmith shop was.
Okay. And then
Yeah,
they would shoe your horses there? And
Oh, yeah.
Did they go to your farm and shoe the horses? Or?
I don't remember that. I think most of it went there. Well, they didn't shoe horses that much because they were always on dirt. They weren't on the pavement, you know. But if they needed to, they would take them there. And that was quite a busy area right there, you know, with different things.
And any other things that you can think of as far as you said lots of changes, probably anything, the most significant change that you've seen or can recall over the years since you've been here?
You know. I never left the township, so I guess all the changes I seen just came by themselves. Like this area right here, how that changed, you know, from what it was.
You said this used to be farmland and
Yeah, this was my in-laws' property right here.
right here. Wow. How many acres were here then?
I think he had 80 acres. Yeah.
Everything was parceled up pretty much, wasn't it, in 80, 100 acres?
A lot of the local farmers were 40, 60, 80 acres.
Okay.
Most of them just wanted to make a living for their family, you know. That's the way it was.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Jerry. Thanks for sharing that with us today.
Thank you.